Tired of using the underhook? Try overhook. Anytime somebody else has an underhook on you, you take your arm and you do the basic Whizzer overhook. So my hands are here, and then I try to touch my fingertips to his opposite hip. So I'm overhooking his left arm, and my fingertips are coming out by his right hip. And what this does is it gives a makeshift americana to the move. And if you reference back to the other video, the underhook that he wants is so high up that once he has it locked in, I can't get to that overhook position. So when we back up, before he gets there, just setting your fingertips there, even if I don't have a lot of pressure there and he tries to go for that underhook right now, it is very difficult to turn that angle without using all of his strength. So my goal is to overhook the arm and try to touch my fingertips to the far hip. And then, so positions this overhook works from would be butterfly, top and bottom. When I'm on top and the partner goes for their underhook, you immediately go for your overhook where your fingers come here. And if you're lazy with this, then they can drive it up to this sumigashi overhook, underhook position, and then you're gonna go overhead or they're gonna arm press you. So as we're sparring and I look for this overhook or they achieve their underhook, immediately my fingertips go there, and now I'm looking to get my inside leg position and just start passing with that pressure, just keeping his arm in that really low position where it's not up here by his neck. And vice versa. If I go for this underhook, he can now put his fingertips here and shut this position down and force everything back on me. So in both positions, the best scenario is to get the underhook, but it's hard to get a very deep underhook. So when somebody's too eager and they shoot for an underhook, that is when you take the overhook and you can start going for passes. Would be when I shoot too deep and he goes for that overhook, he can freely, because most of the time the pressure's so high that I have to at least be posted or not actively pushing in, because when I push in, it creates this americana position on my elbow here. So he can freely get this underhook now on this side, not a deep one, and just fall back into that butterfly sweep, the very basic one. And my favorite position to use it out of ends up being bottom half guard. And the reason for that is because everyone always talks about this person is fighting for this underhook and the person on top is fighting for this underhook. As the person on bottom, when somebody starts this underhook, once they get their shoulder in your armpit, it's too late now with the shoulder and the crossface, you're gonna get crushed. So if you're ever in this battle and somebody starts this underhook process, before they can flare their elbow and get their shoulder under your armpit and the crossface and flatten you out, as they go under, you can take this overhook and just lay down, and it creates a gap for you to just bring your knee shield in. Yes. And now there's no way you're passing that. So every time I'm in half guard, and I feel like I can't win this underhook battle because they're being too stingy about it, I will give them a very shallow underhook to put my hand in and immediately put a knee shield in so I can't get crushed. Now both of my shins are parallel to the ground, and the only reason I'm not getting crushed right now with the hand weave or leg weave or whatever you want to call it is because I still have this overhook. If I let go of it and then he weaves his hands through, now he can crush my legs together and do everything. But because my arm is in the way, he can't flatten me out from here. So I can extend away and get this butterfly hook in, and then just scoot in and take this underhook. And every single time there's so much elevation. So from stand up, same thing. Your opponent is trying to get so deep on this underhook, whether it's the arm crush or just like a basic wrestling underhook and trying to get to your back, either or. You don't want them to lift your elbow past your shoulder line. So before they lift it too high, you try, even if your hand stops on their stomach and it doesn't end up on their far hip, you're trying, or you're thinking about trying to put your fingertips on that far hip. And this shuts down this underhook completely. And you can do something very similar to the way that you would swing a lasso hook out, where you lower your shoulder and just bring their arm out, and you can end up in a Russian tie position. So every time I keep distance initially, and as they overshoot for this underhook, I shoot for my overhook where my fingertips are across to that far hip. And now, this is a very dominant position. There's no way that he's going to circle to the back, get any trips or anything, as long as my hand is across. For the generic defensive situation, when you're being lazy and somebody reaches, before they can get to the point where their shoulder, the same thing as we were talking about from half guard, where their shoulder is under my armpit, and now it's too late. There's no way for me to bring my elbow down once he has proper form. Now it's way too late. So before that happens, as they're reaching, you bring your fingertips across that far hip. So if we do it in vice versa, where I'm going for the underhook, as I go for the underhook, he tries to put his fingers there. And you see, especially because I'm taller, it puts my arm in this Americana style position. And if he does the thing I was talking about where he lowers, he's now in that Russian tie every single time. So now the main thing that people do, what I find, is they sit up and they overhook the arm and they pinch the arm and then they lay back down. And what happens is the person on top just ends up bringing their weight directly over the arm and then pulling their arm straight out of the gap. And whether that be pulling out just like that, where they just pull straight out, or they take their forehand and just post on their chest and just push on the person until their arm comes free. So this is one of the positions where using your fingertips on the opposite hip is very important, because now the easiest way for him to pull his arm out of this overhook is just pulling it straight back. So once you bring your fingertips to the far hip, now that I have my fingertips there, there's an angle. So now his arm has to turn and twist out, and it can't just be pulled out like when people are regularly pitching. The arm gets pulled out. The second I bring it to the far hip, now there's tension and there's turning, torsion going on. I need his hands, or at least one of his hands on the mat, but usually when you're going for an overhook, you want both. I need his hands on the mat. I'm diagonally sitting up, overhooking above the tricep, and I'm putting my fingertips on his far hip, and then I'm bringing my thigh to my own elbow, and usually I'm stepping on that hip and pinching. And now his hand is stuck here, and the more I turn my body down to the ground, the more stuck he is. So the more turning towards the overhook arm, the easier it's going to be for that person to get out of the situation, especially if you're not doing the fingertip trick. So usually when you want to keep the overhook, once you have it, you need an angle so that your chest is almost facing the ground to make sure that the overhook stays. So I'm breaking his arms down, sitting up, getting my overhook, my fingertips are going to the far hip, and my foot is going to my own hip, and I'm pinching my knee. So now if we reverse the position, he needs my hands on the mat. He's going to sit up towards one of my arms and overhook and try to put his hands down by my hip, and then he puts his own foot on my far hip, and then he pinches. And now for me to pull my arm out of here, I can almost lift him off the ground because of the tension that's in this. For me to get out of this right now, I would have to completely turn until my chest is facing the ground over his body, over his head, and then I would need to push on him to get up. So that's why the angle is so important when he comes up and grabs this overhook and pinches. And now he has this angle where his chest is now turned out and it's not facing the ceiling. So now knowing that the only way I can actually get my arm out of here without exposing my back is going to be flattening him back out. His goal is going to be staying on his side and keeping this pinching pressure down with his knee the entire time. And there's many solutions.